Time's up. Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome to the first Saturday Night Drive-In, where it's morning in America again. It's good. It's good. I feel good, Jed. You feel good this week? Something happened that just made me feel good. I feel like I can breathe. Can't you?
Yes. Absolutely. A lot more breathing room.
A lot more breathing room. So we are here. We are ready to have a good time. We think it's going to be a good one tonight. There'll be some good discussion. Discussion. Because Jed,
those are the most entertaining streams, at least.
Yeah.
We have a good discussion.
Jed got a preview of what it's going to be like right now. Jed, how you doing, though? You feeling all right?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. This week has been a fantastic entertainment week for me because I've been blowing through Stargate, loving it, and there's actually someone in the film we're discussing tonight from Stargate. Yes. But also got to watch this film, a childhood favorite of mine, and Arcane Season 2 started coming out, and from what I've seen so far, it is really good. So just good entertainment. It's so rare. I haven't experienced any bad TV or movies this week, and that's very odd for me.
I wish I could say that. I'm not saying to this. I started watching what Jeremy wants me to watch for Anime Odyssey next week or in 2 weeks. I'm not happy. I'm bored. I'm just bored. I don't like it. But that's a different stream. We're here to talk tonight. The Legend of Zorro, the sequel to The Mask of Zorro. And sometimes you ask, do certain movies need a sequel? And I admit, back way when the first one came out, after I finally got seeing it, I thought, you know what? I'd like to see more of this. And I don't want to say I regret kind of thinking that ever, but let's just say I feel like the execution was a little off. It's not terrible. I don't regret seeing it. I just feel that this should have been done with a different approach. I mean, Jed, this was your choice this week. Why don't you set us up?
So, yeah, I will fully admit at the beginning of the stream that I am incredibly biased when it comes to The Legend of Zorro. It was a film I watched a lot growing up, way more than the first one. I've seen the first one twice, including the time we watched it a couple months ago. But this one I've seen dozens of times. So, obviously, there's some bias going into it. I will, of course, try to take that out for the ranking at the end. But there are things that I definitely like about this one better, especially the tone. We're going to vehemently disagree on that, I believe. Okay. But the first one, I thought it had conflicting tones. Sometimes it was super serious and great with Anthony Hopkins. And then you'd have Antonio Banderas as Zorro going into a garrison and campily fighting 50 men at once in the cheesiest way possible. And this film picked a lane. It's not a lane that I normally would go with. I normally like more serious films, but at least it picked a lane. So I can appreciate the tonal consistency with the film. But The Legend of Zorro takes place roughly 10 years after the first film. He's been Zorro for a long time and is considering retirement because California is soon to be inducted into the United States of America as the 31st or 32nd state, I believe. And he's hoping to retire when it becomes a state because America will come in and solve all their problems, at least the way they put it. So I got to say, I like the positive American feel to this movie.
There's a lot of pro Team America here. There really is. And I do appreciate it too. Yeah.
And even when you have certain government officials from the United States be complete assholes and terrible people, they don't judge America based on that. So I love that he doesn't have this weird moment of clarity at the end. It's like, maybe America are the bad guys.
Which would be in a modern telling today. They definitely have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we keep going, hail and howdy to everybody across the chats. We're happy to have you guys here. We appreciate your support. Hit that like button. The like button. All right. Okay. So we are 10 years in, and here's what I do like about going in this 10 years. One, I do love a good time skip. We know I love a good time skip. Second, I do like it that he is a powerful and strong Zorro. That he gets it done. My one problem is he gets captured way too much in this movie. He's like captured 3 times at least, if I remember correctly. And a couple of them are really sloppily. It's like, oh, come on, you're better than this.
The counter argument I would have for that is after the film's opening, he's drunk all the time. He's in a terrible emotional state. He's not on the top of his game. So him being off his game kind of makes sense within the plot of the film. It is taken too far. I will agree with that.
Not that last time he gets captured when he has to go back and get the glycerin bottle from he put under the train. That's sloppy work.
That he put himself in the position to be captured. He knew he was going to get captured, but he wasn't going to blow up the train and kill his family. So he intentionally let himself capture to save their lives. So I think that one's justifiable as well.
I don't like that moment where McGivens, is that wooden teeth guy's name? McGivens.
I'll call him Crossface.
Crossface. Okay, Crossface. That dude is one of the lamest thugs I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, he's pretty pathetic. Because I loved him. I didn't understand a word he was saying, but
it's his ass handed to him in the beginning of the movie. And I don't feel threatened by him as a thug for the rest of the movie whatsoever. And it's even cheapened when we think he's killed the Padre, but the Padre's cross saved. It's like
that was incredibly cheesy.
That could have been a really deep, pivotal moment that the Padre is dead. His confidant, his partner is dead. But no, he comes in and joins the fight and is throwing haymakers. I think it
would have been better if he would have died. That would have been a great ending, just like you're saying to his character.
So for a moment, Crossface had a chance to have made some sort of impact, but he didn't even kill that. And then to have him be the one in that moment when he gets captured at the train, to have the Bowie knife at Zorro's neck, it's like, really? Him?
He should have been at least the mustache dude.
Yeah,
we didn't see much about him.
He didn't say a word, I think. He said a couple, like master or this or that. He said a couple lines there. But that dude was threatening. And I will give it, despite his clear skill level, when it was him versus Elena one-on-one in the train, they choreographed it well that it was believable, her fight against him. Because she was using every single piece of everything in that cart to defend herself. And when she didn't have hands on something, he threw her around like she was nothing. So of course that would be different today. She'd be doing head scissor takedowns. She'd be running with a headlock bulldog to take him down. She'd be doing all kinds of shit like that. Instead, it was believable. I'll say that.
Yeah, so, she used her intelligence. I mean, picking up a nitroglycerin bottle to keep him at bay, that's obviously a very wise move.
I'm surprised she didn't do that sooner in that fight, though. That took a long time. Because I'm thinking, wow, why aren't we grabbing a nitroglycerin bottle? That would, of course, you need the choreography. You need a fight scene. It's part of the moment.
While we're talking about the nitro real fast, I do have to say from a scientific perspective, the nitro doesn't make a lick of goddamn sense, scientifically speaking. It is an explosive, but you're not going to drop a single drop on a dude's forehead and blow
up his head, and it combusts. What was that?
It's complete nonsense, and I admit that I'm a little iffy on the whole plan from the Knights of Aragon, why they needed California. We can get into it once we get to that part of the film, but there's a lot with the Nitro that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we already jumped ahead, but we'll try and ratchet it back. So we are, as Jet said, it's 1850. It's a few months before California is going to become ratified, or at least I don't know I guess it was official when we see later on. It was things took longer back then in terms of ratifications because of distance and inability and stuff. But we're essentially a few months away from California becoming a state. And what happens is Crossface and his goons try to steal the initial ballots for a referendum to get California to the point where it can vote as a whole on a state. And
now, did you see a little bit of why I decided to set the movie this week with how it started?
Of course, yeah. I realized it. I watched this on Thursday. So we are past everything at that point. And I thought, wow, we're talking election stuff. Okay. We're talking
at a time when you wanted
voting.
California votes to be counted.
We're talking voting here. Okay. I get it. But and let's be honest, man, everybody back then, I wish we had that based population now. Everybody's based there.
They're just so excited to join the United States, and I appreciate that. It's very pro-American, even with the Civil War going on, even with Confederates being around, and Crossface being a stereotypical Southern evil man. It works, I think. I really like just the population being like, all right, all our problems can begin to be solved. We're into a new era of prosperity if we can just join the U.S.
Yeah, and it answers our questions from the last movie that the captain from the last movie must have just been rogue. He must have just broken off and deserted when he ended up in pre-statehood California like that. So because the American presence, you can feel the presence of the Union almost upon us there. So it's a very I don't want to say overbearing. That's the wrong word.
Omniscient,
omnipresent. Yeah, maybe omnipresent feeling that you feel. And also, I don't like the idea in terms of the story that the Knights of Aragon are somehow behind the creation of the Civil War a little bit. I don't like that.
See, I 100% agree. I think this film could have worked just as well with the Knights of Aragon being taken out entirely.
Yes.
Just have Armand be some businessman who decides there's financial gain to be had in aligning himself with the South. And that's it. We don't need deep cult spanning thousands of years. We don't need any of that. We
didn't need a super villain in the super villain secret society. We didn't need that. The movie would be much better. Listen, I know that Zorro is considered one of the first folk hero superheroes of all time, and I'm okay with that. But we didn't need to give him a supervillain here. We didn't need to give him
this style
fighting
the character's the same. Armand, the villain, is the same person. If he's just out for money or out for the Southern people's cause in general, just he's an individual agent who realizes, hey, I can make some money or I can make a difference in this war in the way that I want. He operates 100% the same.
Yeah, and thirsty for Elena.
And with all that, we could have trimmed the plot up a lot. The runtime, I know you're not happy with
2
the runtime.
2 hours, 10 minutes. They could have cut 30 minutes out of this movie. Easy, man.
We don't need the Knights of Aragon. Even the Pinkertons being involved, you don't need the Knights of Aragon to get the Pinkertons involved.
Yeah, that would still be Civil War, pre-Civil War business. Yeah, it would still work. So after we get the opening sequence where Zorro stops Ving and he gets demasked by Crossface during that. Now, Crossface never sees him, but the Pinkertons see him. And that sets in line their spy business to force Elena to divorce
Alejandro.
Yeah, thank you. I was struggling with Alejandro. I wanted to say Zorro, but I knew at that point I had to say his real name, and I lost it for a second there. Divorce Alejandro, and then re-ingratiate herself with Armand as they went to finishing school together back in Spain. right.
While you're talking about the unmasking scene, I just want to briefly mention that even as a kid, I thought it was ridiculous that he tore off his sleeve to make the new mask after his mask flew away. Just tear off some of your cloak, dude. You don't need to rip your shirt.
I think the cloak would be more expensive than the sleeve. He's probably got plenty of shirts. The cloak would take a while.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just funny to see his shoulder poking out for the rest of that sequence.
Now, during that opening sequence, we get introduced to Joaquin, although we don't know it's Joaquin yet. And I will say it now. Jed knows where I'm going with this. I found Joaquin to be one of the most annoying things in this whole movie. It's too much. And also through Joaquin, man, I'm sorry. In the first movie, Master Braytac was a different character. He was not a priest in the first movie. It's two different characters. Master Braytac was two different characters, man. He wasn't a priest.
He's just playing a different person.
He was a Don in the first movie. He was a Don. He's not a priest. And
he's not a school teacher.
He's not a priest school teacher. And here's the thing. When Joaquin gets to school, we know it's him there, and he's in school, and he's fighting with Master Braytac. I'm sorry. He's flipping around. He's throwing one-liners. He's going... I mean, come on, man. The kid is unbelievable. It's like, oh, but he's got 2 generations of Zorro genes in him. He's got original Zorro genes.
No training.
And zero. That's the only. Now, listen, I will buy that he's got some fencing training because Elena in the first movie said she was trained to fence from a young age. So I can buy that he's had fencing training. I can buy that. Because Elena probably would have had him doing that, and Alejandro probably would have been okay with it too. Because it's a family thing, and it's okay with that. But the flip, are we saying it just because he's got OG Zorro genes and Alejandro Zorro genes in him that he's just born to do side flips off of tables and land perfectly on his feet?
He's born to be Zorro. He's born to be the protagonist of the third movie with Antonio Banderas as the Anthony Hopkins role.
No.
Hey, we're almost there. We're almost 20 years removed from this movie came out. That young kid.
He's probably fat. He's probably eating Cheetos on a
couch.
couch.
I think we're ready for that same actor to come back, play Joaquin, and be the new Zorro. I think we're ready for that.
In all seriousness, the kid it was over the top with the kid. It was too much.
I will completely agree with his fight scenes. I liked his actual acting in the more serious scenes, or
in the serious moments.
Yeah, I think the kid was a decent child actor. That's not my problem. Were ridiculous. 100% agree.
Yeah, that's not my problem.
Flips, fighting the teacher with a ruler, all that was nonsense. And then him fighting multiple goons throughout the film at the same time.
And the slingshot. It's too much. The kid should have had a reduced role. Him riding Tornado at the end there. His legs don't reach those stirrups. No.
He wouldn't be able to climb on that horse.
Oh, and I gotta say, there's one of your comments before was that there was a certain level in camp in the first movie that with your tonal problems. When Zorro and Tornado land on top of the train and the galloping, and they're heading, they see the tunnel coming. They actually CGI'd the horse's eyes getting bigger.
They did indeed.
I face bombed. I was like, no.
A lot of the horse stuff was cringe, like him being an alcoholic and a smoker and not knowing English.
What is this? You knew English in the first movie.
I 100% agree. The camp was taken too far, but at least it was consistent, which I can at least respect.
It was consistent, and also just the fact that they pushed the humor, I think, too much.
Yeah.
If it had been some, with the kid, it was all slapstick humor, which I'm not against, but it didn't land with me because, again, when it came to that stuff, they went over the top of the kid. But then other times, it was too much back and forth innuendo humor. And I know we're supposed to know that Alejandro and Elena are deeply in love despite their marital or personal issues. But goddamn, do they have to tongue each other every time? Even when they get remarried at the end of the movie, their kid is right there and they are playing tonsil hockey like it's time to celebrate nuptials again.
They got to reconcentrate, and they got to do it before he's needed. The bells are ringing, man. They got to do all the steps of the wedding.
They were tonguing before those bells were ringing at the end. I felt it. I like a good romance, but man, they turned it up to 11 with those two in their horniness. So they have Spanish energy. Spanish energy. That's a good one. But yeah, so the movie really kicks off when we learn that Elena is not happy that Alejandro wants to keep being Zorro, despite the fact that California is about to become a state, and they have a fight, and he leaves to go do some Zorro junk. She says, if you do that, don't come back. Problem is, in that moment after he's gone, the Pinkertons show up and blackmail her to divorce him. Now, I looked away for half a second during the 3-month time skip. Was there any other implication that they've been divorced besides that letter that he gets?
No, because that was right before the time skip. So
okay, yeah,
I think that was the moment right before the time skip. So she issued for divorce, and that fight I want to briefly talk about where they were having the disagreement about him retiring, leading up to him, leaving and not spending the night at the house. I kind of get both their perspectives. I mean, their agreement was he would be Zorro until California became a state, and it seems like she took that to mean when the vote in their local precinct happened, but it's still 3 months away from California actually being a state. So I don't blame him for saying, the California is not a state yet, though. So we still have 3 months of this. But she's obviously worried, and as she talks about later, he doesn't know his son. Yeah. She's worried about the father-son relationship and just them as a family union. That I can see why she'd be upset about realizing that there's more time involved. And it's just little details like that I appreciate in this film. There are things that even in the campiness, like the first explosion test, when we get there, there's just a little bit more thought put into this than there necessarily needed to be. Their fight didn't even need to exist for the Pinkertons to come and blackmail. But I got both sides of their fight and didn't really blame either of them for it. I appreciated that.
From character perspective, I agree with you. They're both really, they both have legitimacy in their perspectives, where he realizes that there's still a danger zone right now where there's no proper authority. There's still a territory, and that means there's no law going on, because a governor of a territory does not have the same powers as a governor of a state. They can't. They're mostly over provinces, because did they say province in the beginning when they were talking about the election areas? I think they said provinces.
Provinces. I don't remember what the word was, but there are individual areas voting, and the governor made it very clear that this was just the results from the area that Zorro lived in. So the election wasn't won yet. It's just saying, hey, we got the results in from this area. It voted for statehood.
Yeah, and it's 3 months to tabulate, so a lot of shit can go down. And he is committed to this, and he always says it's who I am. And of course, it follows around later on in the movie where she says it's who we are. So there is a complete circle of the storytelling there. But I felt the movie, and I appreciate and both annoyed by the fact that they rely on the audience to understand that there was divorce, but the sudden time skip and without much more to it threw me for a loop. Because I literally was sitting here and I went like this. And I went like that, and I know maybe I missed it out of the corner of my eye, but suddenly it's 3 months later, and
it put it on the screen. It said
no,
3 months.
I don't mean that, but I mean then we had to go through the process of understanding they had a divorce, and I think the way they displayed it should have been a little better. Like maybe I don't remember. Do we actually see the words in the letter, or we just see him read it?
Oh, we see the letter. He drops the letter. It lands on the ground, and they do a close up where you can see issue for divorce.
Oh, okay. That's when I looked away. Okay, so I take that back. I looked away in that second. Okay,
and then it faded to black. I think it said 3 months later.
That's when I literally had turned my head to over here instead of over here, and I missed that one point. Okay, so I take that back. All right, so I take it back. I retract that criticism because I looked away and I thought, did I miss something? Should I go back? Nah. it's probably fine.
I think there were details from those 3 months that we really needed, especially where Joaquin was. We got the implication that obviously Alejandro still has visitation rights or whatever, but we don't know where he's staying. His mom hasn't told him about Armand yet. Like, there's some weird stuff about Joaquin's current status. And then the priest comes to pick him up later in the movie from school. So is he supposed to be staying at the hotel with Alejandro?
Yeah.
Like, there's just some weird things about that I think could have been much clearer.
Now, for the sake of cutting through a lot of the back and forths, I felt now as we get into the end of the first act and begin, like, at the end of the first act kind of, I think, concludes with the revelation of Elena, Alejandro, and the party. I think the party is kind of the end of the first act. Is that a fair place to stop it? Because then suddenly the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though a lot of the obvious plot lines that are going on, obviously she's been blackmailed. We don't get that for a long time, but obviously blackmailed. Obviously Armand is more than he appears. I think in some cases, and this is one of my criticisms of the narrative of the movie, there were too many different things going on throughout the second act that took too long to come together, and it was distracting to me in terms of following the plot. I didn't lose the plot, but it's like, wow, we're deviating. We're back at family issues. We're back at personal issues. We're back at regret over being Zorro. We're looking at what's really going on with Armand. And it's a lot of show don't tell.
Yeah.
But for me, it was sloppy show don't tell.
Yeah. I would agree that at least if nothing else, that act is the one that you could trim the most out of to tighten up the runtime of the film. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of that was unnecessary. Just focusing primarily on Elena and Alejandro during that would have gone a long way. Like, we don't need all the weird stuff with the priest. The priest, I don't think is that important to the film. We could really downgrade his involvement substantially and it'd be equivalently the same. But I would say the party is a good place to say the beginning of Act 2. But.
Yeah, now I got to say, he got drunk real fast at that party, man. He got... If he's been on a bender for 3 months, I would think his tolerance is a little bit better at that point. But like,
especially drinking wine.
Yeah, 3 glasses of wine. He was tipsy.
And I can buy the people who don't like seeing their heroes like this. Like, this does feel like a little, we don't want to see him this out of it. Like, it's just being a drunk for most of Act 2 and just ridiculous. And the polo scene as well, where he's just incompetent. Like, I think that all was taken too far.
Yeah, I mean, and all the fact that Elena had to loosen the saddle so that he didn't get run through with the broken polo stick is just.
Well, what was Armand gonna say? It was.
I know that would not have played out well for him,
especially not with Elena. Like, if it had been like the other end had broken off, he could at least have an argument of, oh, there was something wrong with the pole, but the back end was broken off, and he stabbed the back end into his rival. He was literally
holding it that way, charging it.
Yeah, it was beyond the suspension of disbelief that he would do that.
I'm no polo expert, but last I checked, jousting is not a part of it.
That's true, as far as I'm aware as well. And that seemed to be the primary thing. You joust and then you hit the ball.
You swing the mallet to hit the ball, and you chase each other around on horses swinging the mallets. You don't joust before
hitting the balls.
And honestly, I know, again, it's a movie. Considering they take a lot of battle damage in this movie, that you take a fall you get a shot in the chest like that. There's broken ribs. Those dudes both have
speeds. They were going fast, and they don't have the benefit of armor like real jousting.
They got broken ribs, dude. And not to mention possible whatever else from falling like that off a horse. So, I mean, the polo scene, we didn't need that at all.
Yeah, that I think is a horrible addition to the film. Just expand the market scene a little bit of them talking by the watermelons.
I mean, I think the polo scene purely exists to show us that Armand is sketchy when the butler breaks the mallet.
I don't think we needed that, though.
No, we did, but we did. You're right. We didn't need that. So you could that, and that's at least a 5 to 8 minute scene all by itself, right?
At least, yeah, it is a significant
and that means
sequence.
That means you can cut out everything related to that. That's a good anywhere between 10 or 15 minutes you can cut out right there. And then I appreciate because they established it in the first movie. I don't have a problem with it, but Elena's investigation, how she goes about it, it doesn't completely sit right with me.
It's not subtle. She's not good at it.
Especially because Alejandro, when he's in Zorro mode, gets in there and gets out in perfect Zorro mode. Nobody knows he was there, and he learned more than she did when he went in there. All she got was the ticker.
Yeah, the telegram.
Yeah, that's all she got. And so it's I feel I feel that was the moment in the story in terms of a narrative where she could have come clean to him instead of having them be antagonistic with each other for another 40 minutes.
Yeah. It makes a lot more sense. It's a point of no return. He knows something's weird going on, so he's just going to keep picking at that scab.
Yeah.
So the logic would dictate that she reveal it to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when he busts her doing espionage shit. So I felt like that would have been a better narrative to have them have a return to, maybe normalcy is the wrong word, but a return to equal
companionship.
Yeah. We're going to work together again on this. Therefore, it just another 40 minutes of them being strained. It frayed my nerves because I'm like, why are we doing this? I'm not enjoying watching them be angry at each other when clearly they're not. When we know that she's being manipulated and he's not being smart enough to realize she's being manipulated.
Yeah. And I would say here that it doesn't seem like it's a prerequisite of the blackmailing that he not know what she's doing. It seems more you need to divorce him so you can be in the position to be with Armand, but she chose not to tell him because obviously he'd be upset about getting divorced. But at this point, I think it makes more sense to bring him in and try to get him to work with the Pinkertons.
Yeah, to get
that makes the most sense.
Get the strength of Zorro on your side. Because
even though I do buy the Pinkertons not taking Zorro seriously or knowing if they could trust him or not, but by that point, I think he would be seen as an asset if Elena brought him
their behavior to drug him and remove him from the equation, that makes no sense. Because the Pinkertons, clearly they're very good at their observation job of their information gathering, intel gathering. They should know that he is as equally proficient at gathering evidence.
By that point, I get it at the beginning of the film when they first got there, not wanting to trust him, but after 3 months, I can buy it, and I really appreciate while we're talking about the Pinkertons, their logic for why they needed her, because obviously they don't have jurisdiction, so they had to do some back-end shenanigans to get the information that they need.
And I'll bring this up, same $8,000 for $2. Just asked, why wouldn't the Pinkertons use Zorro instead of her? Because she has the inside track.
Yeah, she already had a friendship, at least with Armand from when they were kids. So that personal connection is what they're blackmailing her for. That's the benefit they see out of it.
Yeah.
And I can see from their perspective why they would see that as far more valuable than having Zorro on their side. I can buy that.
But you make the great point. At this point in the movie, when it's clear Zorro is getting as much information as they are, now it's time to realize, okay, let's combine forces. Let's work together. Instead, they inexplicably drug him. Now that capture I can buy because that's some spy shit.
Yeah,
that Zorro has no comprehension.
There's no way to defend against that.
Yeah. So I buy that, but to take him out of the equation like that, knowing that Armand is dangerous and that Elena is in peril. Although one of there's a dichotomy there. One Pinkerton seems sort of worried about keeping Elena alive, and the other one says she's only useful until she gets information. So their portrayal as cold-hearted government officials or agents, maybe more appropriate to say, it's displayed very cleanly. But they're also stupid.
Yeah.
They're stupid. You're stupid. Thank you, $70,000 for the $2.
While we're still talking about this sequence before we move on, I did want to briefly mention, I did say it earlier, but the first explosion test that happened right after the party. So
where'd the lightning come from? Was there lightning and exploded? I don't get it.
So I think the initial part of it is ridiculous. Just seeing Zorro drunk on his horse, drinking with his horse out near the house, a little ways away from the house. That whole part is ridiculous and we didn't need to see. But I do appreciate at least the attempt to make this explosion test make sense. of doing it near the house. He had to do it on the property, and doing it when there were fireworks going on. Like at this party, there are fireworks, so they at least made an attempt to justify why Zorro's here, why he's here to witness it, and why they would be doing this test at this time and place. So it's just a little thing that I can appreciate. I don't know 100% why there's nobody nearby to witness the test. The lightning
telescope maybe.
And then why didn't they see him just hanging out in the crater? There are still issues with it, but at least that effort was put in, so I have to give him props for that. But yeah, the nitroglycerin never makes sense. There's not an explosive on the planet that would have behaved like that in that scene,
at that
knock him
time,
off his feet,
especially in 1850.
Yeah, because I believe nitroglycerin is a core component of dynamite, but dynamite doesn't behave like that.
Yeah, straight explosion. Now, within this act, a lot of, as I said, things that bug me. Of course, they surround the kid. There's no reason Joaquin should have hitched a ride on that wagon to where they had the soap coming in and building the track.
Progress the plot.
Zorro could have been there alone. Instead, it was also he could have the moment with the son, so they could talk in Spanish, and the kid can have the soap and say, "I've helped." It's just, I don't think Joaquin should have played a role like that.
Yeah, he didn't need to be involved in the film. Most of his involvement in the film was entirely unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I think it would have been fine to have him there at the end where there's the unmasking, and because you could have had there could have been other situations where he could have interacted with Zorro rescuing him. I mean, put him in another situation where Zorro rescues him, and they have that alone moment where he doesn't know he's talking to his dad, and Alejandro feels guilt about not being there. There could have been another way to do it instead of putting the kid in the middle of the action again. And that's where it stretches my ability to believe that it's possible. My immersion is a little broken at that point. And also because the kid is just so mouthy. That kid has no concept of danger. Now, Adam, that's making of a future Zorro. Shut up. No, that kid's gonna get himself killed. He goes into bars yelling at adults and gets thrown out. He's lucky he ain't dead. Beaten severely. Doesn't matter if his father's a Don. Nobody knows who the kid is. That's the thing. So don't be afraid of his father as a Don. So the Joaquin stuff drags it out. I know it's done with a purpose. It could have been done and executed better for me. And that's where it loses me a lot every time the kid's involved. And the fact that he had to be the one to give him the soap. And I would have liked Zorro to be the one to do this shit, not the kid. That's what it comes down to.
I don't disagree. I don't like his action sequences, even as an adult, and with the nostalgia that I have for this film. But yeah, I like his personal scenes, like the one you mentioned where he doesn't know he's talking to his dad.
That's fine. That's great.
Yeah, I think all that's good, but it's the action scenes with Joaquin specifically that I just can't stand.
When he breaks him out of the jail cell. I mean, the slingshot in the ass, and he hasn't got the concept of run away. You've done it, and they're freaking out. Now's the time to run away. Don't go in for a second shot. They're already fighting amongst themselves. You don't need to take a second slingshot, but no.
Well, I will defend that a little bit. I think it's still a stupid scene, but he had to take that second shot because that's the dude with the keys. He drew the guy with the keys away to get the keys to open the cell.
Okay.
Because after the dude fell dramatically and hit him on the head, he grabbed the keys from his belt.
That dude should be dead. He landed on his temple. He should be dead. The kid has blood on his hands.
More blood on his hands than Zorro. Like you mentioned, he doesn't kill anyone. Really.
Let's go. We've had enough action sequences at this point with Zorro. He has fought Crossface and his henchmen multiple times at this point and not killed a single one of them. Has killed none of them. Hasn't done anything to stop. And now I especially have a problem with when we get to the third act and everybody's reconciled and they're now working together. The moment where Elena is busted and she's fighting off the multiple dudes, and Alejandro sweeps in, jumps in, and they fight back to back. Great sequence. Fine. Problem is, later on, after he's captured and unmasked and fights more dudes escaping, all those Confederate soldiers are alive. They saw his face unmasked.
Do they know who he is, though? They might not have the context to recognize him.
Yeah, but he's still a public persona. If they stick around long enough, I'm sure they'd find. I just that bugged me that people saw his face and they're still alive. And Zorro being Zorro, there's no problem with him killing them. It's a fair fight. Swords and guns are out. It's fine. But that whole area of the movie there, while the choreography is good, I'm still, as I said earlier, bugged that the Padre comes back in.
Mm-hmm.
Flying haymakers to take out Crossface, and then it's just, I don't like the whole thing. And I gotta ask this. Now, I don't know how fast trains are going back then. I don't know what the max speed is. But that train had a serious head start. Did he really catch up to it on Tornado alone?
So it would depend on the amount of wind, the type of tracks going on. That is a recently built homemade track to connect to the real track. So they might have been going slowly because they didn't have the resources that the actual train builders would have had. And I would see them going about 20, 30 miles an hour.
Okay. And Tornado can easily go 45. Okay.
Yeah. Once they got into the real track, you saw them picking up speed and you saw them going faster. I think that's the justification that I would see.
You mentioned the real track. I had a problem with the fact that once the crowd at the signing ceremony saw the train coming, magically there's an alternate track line there. Why didn't somebody...
That wasn't there earlier. No one went to use it.
They all just ran. Seriously? And to have Tornado knock it, come on.
We didn't need any of that. And I don't know if you noticed it. They don't put emphasis on him being there. But Joaquin saved Abraham Lincoln's life.
Was that Abraham Lincoln in the top hat? It's pre-beard Lincoln. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was Lincoln. I'm thinking, wait, is that Lincoln? Is that Lincoln? Okay, because
I think it's supposed to be.
Because he's not president yet. He's not president yet.
No, they just wanted him to be there, and so he was still a senator, I believe. They just needed an excuse.
I saw the top, like, wait, is that Lincoln? I don't know. I guess. Again, Joaquin. He is a lot of my points off in this movie. Everything involving him. And it's I know it's a legitimate thing, but when he says Poppy, I cringe a little bit. Just because of current day connotations of who says Poppy these days. So I'm talking Latino women when they say hey Poppy. That I'm damaged, okay? Modern day damage. But I see that, I go, no, I don't like it. Everything Joaquin. I have 90% of Joaquin bugs me, and that's that too. If that was him saving Lincoln, man. All right,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so the overall story, and we mentioned it, of basically the Knights of what are they? Knights of Aragon?
Well, before we get to the Knights of Aragon part, I did want to mention one thing in Act 2. I think my favorite sequence in the film is when Zorro goes to defend that homestead. I don't know what you thought about that.
I did want to talk about it. Thank you. I went off on a tangent and I forgot I did want to talk about that. That happens, and then it's forgotten.
Oh, it's entirely forgotten.
It's a powerful scene, and it's completely forgotten. And the wife seems perfectly fine, happy, holding the baby in the movie, going, "Yay, California State!" Man, she mourned 2 days mourning done. Guess she found another sugar daddy.
She should have. It's just a simple direction change for her. Is have her still at that scene. That's great, and have her like kind of half smile, like she's still
have her wearing mourning clothes. She could be
something.
But she's just cheering on,
yeah. That part of her story was awful, but I liked how that entire family was set up throughout the film with their deed. They were there at the beginning during the voting, and we got their scene with Crossface in the market when he's going to buy the knife. And I think they set all that up pretty decently well and made them very likable with very few scenes. As soon as, Alejandro goes, "Oh, the baby's as ugly as his mother." They're very playful people,
Now,
so it makes them likable.
She was an idiot in that. If she had stayed underneath the house instead of running away, he never would have gotten killed. Because her leaving the safety of the crawl space underneath the house put her in more danger.
It definitely put her and the baby in more danger, but I think we didn't see anything necessarily that would say the husband made different decisions. So I think the husband's still dead.
No, because if he hadn't been looking for her and distracted, if she hadn't been in the crawl space, because he's calling her name out.
Oh, right, because she opened it up.
And then Crossface gets the drop on him.
I would still argue with that because, he'd still have opened that up, been looking for her, and then she just would have been there in the line of fire, too. And might have said, "Hey, she's
behind
there."
you.
It is a gun, though. So
No, he cut his throat. Oh, no, you're right, shot him. I'm thinking of a different moment.
He had his gun raised, and by the time she would have, crawled out enough to look up at him, I still see him dying and her actually being in a vulnerable position. It's still terrible that, she led them to the barn and led to the barn burning down and all that. So her decision-making wasn't sound, but I don't know if staying under the house would have been much better when it comes to the death of the husband. I still see the husband dying the same way either.
I'll concede a little bit of that. But I just feel that she made it worse with her actions in that whole sequence.
Especially when she got out of the crawl space. Like from the framing of the house that we saw, she could have kept the house in between her and the line of sight of the attackers, and then cut through into the cornfield that was behind there. Going to the barn, clear sight of everyone, was a horrible decision.
I have to say though, that CGI fire looked terrible. That CGI fire was not looking good. The flames over the baby and I could see it. Uncanny Valley, massive Uncanny Valley. Doesn't retract from the importance of the scene, but I must comment that I recognized some serious Uncanny Valley on the fire special effects. But it's a good scene. But again, Zorro doesn't kill anybody. These are dudes who need to get ganked in that moment. Didn't kill anybody. I mean,
you need to kill these guys. I'm with you.
Think about it. Dude gets hit in the nuts, gets caught on fire. Oh, okay. I have to say, my one problem with that scene is the follow through of the joke set up by Joaquin in school with the poker and the fire.
The flaming hot poker up the butt.
Didn't need that. They could have started the fire another way instead of going for the cheese joke follow through. Because as soon as I started pulling up the poker, I said, "Oh, that's going up his ass." That's going up his ass.
Yep.
We know exactly what's about to happen. And I'm sorry, that dude is dead too.
He's definitely dead. But Joaquin has a weird fascination with butts. He's always aiming for the butt with his his slingshot. He's always kicking people. It was weird.
The De La Vega line may be in question if he's that interested in butts.
Well, and I do have to say, he spends a lot of time at a Catholic church as a young boy. That might have something to do with it.
Oh, no. I think I think the Padres okay. I don't think he's a diddler. He's not a diddler.
There's other Padres. There's other. Braytac might be.
Man, don't you besmirch the name of Master Braytac. Don't you besmirch his name. He's Master Braytac and always will be. Dude, I gotta say, you just mentioned your season 7 SG1 finale. When you get there, best season finale of all 10 seasons, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm excited to get there.
Oh, it is incredible. And now remember, when you get there, then you're going to start your Atlantis watch at the end of season 7. You're starting your Atlantis watch. Beginning of season 8, you begin your Atlantis watch. I'll get you through it. Oh, that season 7 finale, though, that is the best season finale out of all 10 seasons, in my opinion.
I'm definitely liking Anubis better so far. Once we found out a little bit of where he came from, or there's that Anubis, more to him.
He's goat. He's goat as terms of villains. And wait till you get more of it. You're going to get all of it. But
I love the little ideas that they have, like what's his bucket, Teal'c using his symbiote and switching it between him and Braytac for that part.
That was the Chris Judge episode. Did you like that episode? That was
he got a lot of range.
Wasn't that a great episode, man?
He did a fantastic job. But just little stuff like that. Like, and I think it was season 6 when there was that Gould who had the gravity tech. where like the prison cell that Jack was in, the gravity would change based on if the cell was on or off. I love just the little sci-fi ideas.
That's such a good episode too. That's so good. Okay, tangent stop. Tangent stop. I gotta say that's a different stream altogether. Look, it's all it takes, man. It's all it takes.
But yeah, Master Braytak, you don't know what he's doing in Legend of Zorro.
Master Braytak was a chump in this movie, and it's not right. And he played two different characters. That just bugs me. They didn't even care. They just didn't care.
Why even bring him back? It's been 10 years.
I know. Anyway, okay, so all right, so Knights of Aragon. Let's get back to that because that comes to fruition in the third act. Like we already established, it did need to happen, and I do not like this is where the movie, as the narrative, the story goes, it starts to lose me at this point that we're putting in some sort of.
It's so last minute.
Yeah, it feels like it's tacked on. It feels like a studio note. Hey, let's add this shit in here. Let's add secret society stuff.
What year did Da Vinci Code and National Treasure come out?
I don't know.
Because that would have been
National
similar.
Treasure. We've done that one.
Da Vinci Code was 2006, so the year after, and National Treasure was the year before. So yeah, this was the time when secret societies were becoming prominent in Hollywood, and the Knights of Aragon are equivalent to the Templars. I'd say they're pretty
That's
similar.
What I was thinking. I'm thinking now. I would say Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed wasn't out yet, so
not for another few years.
Yeah,
but,
so somebody played too much Assassin's Creed, but wasn't out yet.
So are you ready? I can outline the whole Knights of Aragon thing.
Go for it.
All right. So apparently after the Crusades, there was a secret group of Templars basically who decided that they needed to be behind the power in Europe, that they didn't trust the current rulers after the handling of the Crusades. So they organized themselves as the Knights of Aragon, and they manipulated everything in Europe for centuries. And for some reason during this time, there's magic, by the way. This film canonically establishes magic in the Zorro universe in a throwaway line. They have a prophecy about the United States destroying the Knights of Aragon.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you get it. It's about World War II or World War I, one of the world wars, because they are implying that they're going to make a play for European control, like Germany, and America is going to be the ones to stop them from enacting their final plans.
I think it's World War II because the guy who defects says, "I'm afraid we're going to awaken a sleeping giant," and that's the famous line. That's the famous line from Tora, Tora, Tora. I'm afraid we've awakened a sleeping giant. So it might be World War II.
I believe it is, and that's just magic in Legend of Zorro, by the way. And so this member of the Knights of Aragon decides, all right, we've got to destroy the United States. They're getting ready for civil war. So what I'm going to do is move to California because it's outside of their control, even though it's on the opposite continent, ship soap with glycerin in it.
You missed a part. You also have to understand that because of Armand, so begins Napa Valley.
Yes, he's behind Napa Valley.
Wine country begins in California because of Armand.
That's true. So yeah, he moves to California, sets up a winery to cover up their operations in Napa Valley, and then he starts shipping soap from Europe with glycerin in it. And this is pre-Panama Canal. So they're going around the Cape of Good Hope, probably, or the Horn. They're going around the entire world. It doesn't make sense why it's in California. I'm just going to say that. Doesn't make sense that it's California. And they're using his vineyard as a cover for a factory that's extracting the glycerin from the soap.
A factory with Chinamen working it. Factory with Chinamen.
And they don't actually say the soap is from Europe, I don't believe, but I'm hoping that the existence of the Chinese guys working in the factory implies that it's actually from Asia, because that would work a lot better. If they could only get the soap from Asia, then California. Then California will make sense as the hub for that. But yeah, his vineyard's close enough to the sea that there's this weird river canyon that they take those boats up to lift the soap out and then transport it to the vineyards. They make the nitroglycerin there, but they need train tracks to go from the vineyard to the real train tracks to go to the south to transport the nitroglycerin in wine bottles to the south to give to the Southern generals to attack Washington, D.C. with.
Yeah, there's a lot of problem with that. What's the delivery system for the nitro?
I'm guessing it's going to be wine.
We're throwing wine bottles? Are we making Molotov nitro cocktails? Is that what we're doing?
I'm guessing, they might wait for a party at the White House or something, ship in all the wine, and then set it all up at once to blow up the White House.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption.
And
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft. It's a movie. We're talking about a movie. Come on, people. Yeah, so there's it doesn't make any sense.
Why I don't like the Knights of Aragon thing.
Yeah.
We can't have the prophecy. The prophecy makes this all nonsense. They just had, hey, he's happening to live in California. He's a businessman, and he realizes, hey, I can make nitroglycerin. This is interesting. Let's ship it from where I live to the south and let them do what they want with it. And that be the whole thing. And I can buy that much, much better than prophecy and end of the world
and helping start a war. I mean, the thing that made the first movie work is that it was all about greed and power grab for land, and that worked. They should have kept it simple like that in this one too, upscaling it to we're behind the Civil War. We're trying to avert a prophecy that means our doom. You're suddenly breaking my immersion again, and it's just yeah. Now that aside, it's the second one, Bills. It's the second one. The entire final sequence, I'm mostly okay with it. I have a problem with the horse on the train. I already mentioned that already. The horse tornado on top of the train and the tunnel and the big eyes and him. I'm thinking, how's that? How are they getting off that train? Oh, the final car is a stable car. Okay.
All right. Comes up later with Joaquin.
Yeah. But the rest of that, I'm okay with it. Hey, at one point they had Zorro and Armand dual wield fighting. I was okay with that. I'm
okay with the dual wielding, but the way that he gets dual wielding, he has a sword that splits in half.
What I like about that is Zorro's like, hey, I like that. He's like, hey, I'm impressed. I like
there's a line that Zorro gives in that fight scene with Armand that apparently is controversial. I want to get your takes on before I say what my thoughts are. So he carves the the Z into Armand's stomach, just like he always does, and then he says, "So the devil will know who sent you." What do you think of that line?
Well, he's gonna send him to hell.
I like the line. I think it fits with the tone of the movie, but people apparently find it too cringe. Apparently, it's a controversial one.
I think it's fine. Zorro's allowed to have one-liners. Joaquin isn't.
He hasn't earned the right.
He has not earned that right. Yes, I think it's fine that he's saying I'll see you in hell, basically, or so shit like that. It's same as that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. No problem. I'm okay with the whole fight sequence in that final there. It's not, to me, it's not as, it doesn't have the impact of the final battle of the first movie. I thought there was a lot more emotion and a lot more power in that one. This one was more about spectacle than anything, fighting on the train, kicking, I'm going to jump and, log's going to knock you back. And now you have a gun. Now we're on the front of the train. And
the deaths were way over the top in this scene.
Yeah,
though, the one drop blown crossface out of this world. And then Elena putting a nitroglycerin bottle in the henchman's pants and then throwing him into all the Southern generals.
And then when they finally get Armand, they just kind of tie him to the front of the thing. And my problem with that is, once more, I will say, Elena has already been proven to be capable. I didn't need her saving him in that moment. I don't like it that Zorro was stunned, and if she isn't there, Armand kills him. Yeah. I don't like that. Now, they do kind of rebalance it when Zorro whips them to safety in epic fashion. They balance that out, that he gets them out of there, but I don't like that. And then it's compounded when they tie him to the front of the train
instead of just killing him.
Yeah, so that because it happened, and him gonna go. Ah! I knew that was gonna happen, and there it was. As opposed to the first movie, where yes, both guys died screaming in the first movie. They are villains, but it was much better and it was more hardcore. This is just he's gonna crash into the rocks, and as the train explodes, I would have preferred a stab.
Yeah, stab him, leave his bleeding body at the front of the train, and then he blows up.
Not because Zorro, and that's one of my chief complaints in this. Zorro doesn't gank anybody. in this.
It's definitely a neutered version of Mask, where this is kid friendly. That's why, as growing up, I was never allowed to watch Mask, but I watched this one all the time. It was definitely for family audience, whereas the first one I couldn't say that.
Yeah. So, and then you get happy ending, remarried. They tongue each other in front of the kid. He's gonna go off and be. So she's happy that he's gonna keep being Zorro, even though California's a state, because we are. It is who we are, and I'm fine with that. And it's nice happy ending. I liked. I know it's a classic Zorro thing to have him rear back on Tornado, be like, yeah. But I really liked the final shot of the first movie where he walks up and cuts the flaming Z, and then we end. I preferred that kind of ending to this one, or at the very least, they should have done the classic Zorro theme where he rears up a tornado and lightning strikes behind him. I feel like that would have been more appropriate instead of he does the rearing back and the sun is setting. I found it to be a little tepid. I wasn't going, yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, happy ending. Yay. That's kind of it. Anything else? Anything else
No,
to add? Yeah.
Not about the
soundtrack is the same as the first movie. It's same type of thing. No, it's just it's score.
It works.
Stand out. It works. Yeah, it's each for the scene score. All right, then, Jed, it's your week. You get to go first.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I have a lot of nostalgia for this film because I grew up watching it, grew up loving it, but there are plenty of issues with it, like we've discussed. I will say I would much rather rewatch this one than the first one. I just have a lot of issues with the tonal inconsistency of the first film that I'm okay never watching the first one again, whereas this one I do want to watch, rewatch, and that I think that's a big difference between the two of us, but the plot is nowhere near as sound. You don't have greats like Anthony Hopkins helping to carry this film from an acting perspective, but it's not as bad as it could have been. I think this one still deserves to be considered in conversations with the original, with Mask of Zorro, but I will agree it's a step down, so I give this one a 5 out of 10. Just a plain fun, good, kind of waste your time film, but yeah, it's a turn your brain off, have a little fun, don't think about it, and I have a lot of fun with this film. I enjoy it immensely, even with all the issues with it.
I'm pretty much with you, except for the one thing where I am the exact opposite, as you just said. I find the first movie more compelling. I find it a tighter script, a tighter story, much better acting overall, performances-wise. But that's not to say this movie doesn't destroy the franchise. It's not a bad movie. I just find it poorly executed in spots. Cut down on the forced humor, cut down on the kid, and I know that it's, as you said, the family-friendly nature of it lends towards how it portrays itself. But the impact of everything seems to be lessened every time. You think the Padre's dead. Oh, he's alive. The whole farm scene where the dude dies and the wife is a widow and this and that, and they lost everything. She seems perfectly fine at the end of the movie. There's no repercussions. There's no forward with that. But at the same time, it still is Zorro being Zorro for the most part. He doesn't lose his agency too much. A couple moments, as I said, where I feel like he didn't have peak Zorro moments, or he didn't need he shouldn't have had the help he got. But you gave some good defense of it, and I can accept it. It doesn't reach the heights of the first one for me, though, and the inconsistency of the plot, splintering too many and coming back very loosely at the end, it takes away a lot for me. So in the end, I gave the last one an 8 out of 10. I gotta drop this one to 6 out of 10. And unlike you, I want to rewatch the first one, and I never really need to see this one again. I will not. I won't. I will not throw this one out because it's a fine conclusion to this duology that we have, but it doesn't endear me like the first one did. It's not as endearing to me. So there you go.
Well, all right. I will have to add that this actually did kill the franchise. It shouldn't have, but this one was a failure at the box office. I didn't know this. I had to look it up yesterday. It lost money. Its Rotten Tomato scores are terrible. Its reviews across the board, audience and critics are just terrible. So I was very surprised by that. It wasn't an absolute failure loss at the box office, but it definitely lost money. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of interest to make another one.
Well, I mean, I don't see where you go with it, with the way they ended it, unless you do a 20-year time skip, which they could literally do
with
now.
Joaquin.
But then I don't want that because I don't like him. But there really is nowhere left to go at that moment in the story because who are your villains at that point? your estate.
If they made it today, they're gonna make it some American villain or something.
Well,
American
it would have to. They could move forward and have it take place during the Civil War, and that could be something else. But then what is Zorro's part in the Civil War? That doesn't fit right. Zorro is a champion of the people, and
he shouldn't take sides in a war.
Yeah, so they would. If this was the end of it, I'm fine. And I as I said, I remain liking the first one better because I think the first one was one of those, as I said in our review of it, it's a perfect encapsulation of respecting what came before and laying the groundwork for going forward. And they went forward and I'll say they did a serviceable job. They didn't ruin anything. I just think it could have been better. And maybe if it had been tighter, it would have gotten a third movie, maybe made it a trilogy. But it's done. This is literally 20 years ago now. So we're moving on. And we're moving on to next week, where, as I said at the beginning of the show, last week, I ran a super chat goal, and our good friend Algrim the Strong shouldered it all his way. So he got two choices, essentially, because he got a perk for the second one. But I chose a movie that I have never seen, which is rare. I usually don't choose movies I haven't seen, but I felt it was an appropriate chance to do that. So we're going to be doing Inception, which I've never seen. I have no horse in this race except for the fact that I hate Leonardo DiCaprio. Just about everything he's in.
This is my favorite DiCaprio film as like a performance.
Okay.
I'm hoping that difference. I love Inception. Up until watching Alien, it was my favorite film. I'm gonna be a little biased when it comes to this one. But I generally dislike Leo as well.
Yeah. So that next week, Inception. So join us for that. And other than that, guys, thank you all for being here. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you. Your support allows us to keep doing this. So hit those like buttons, subscribe to the channels, and we'll see you guys next week. You know what? Shit, I forgot to forward everybody over to Gaming Stream. Stay here for Chatterday Gaming Stream. Dermy's going to earn citizenship. He's going to earn citizenship or kill some bugs. So stick around, guys. I'll see you guys later. Night, guys.